you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Looks Voss here from the Chris Voss Show. Welcome. I don't know what I'm doing, folks. I have a little fun here on the Monday morning with the show. Welcome to the big show for 16 years, 2,700 episodes. Count them. Go listen to them all this week, because who needs work and a job when you can listen to the Chris Voss Show? For the show to your family, friends, and relatives, go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. Chris Voss won on the TikTok, and do you know that 99% of the time I make up the ramble? Something like that. I don't know. I got 99 ways on my brain here. We're going to be talking to a wonderful young lady about her new book. It is entitled 99 Ways to Die and How to Avoid Them. So this might be an important show for you to watch, because if you're not here tomorrow, we're going to be like, hey, you didn't listen to the show. You didn't avoid the 99 Ways to Die. Ashely Alker is a doctor who's going to be on the show with us. We're going to be talking to real doctors for a change. I know other podcasts, they like to talk to quacky people. We like to talk to real doctors and people who are certified in knowing what they're doing. It's kind of a weird thing we have about facts and stuff in this dealio. So we're going to get into it with Ashely and talk about her insights and all that good stuff. Welcome to the show, Dr. Ashely. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm pretty good.
Thanks for coming. And do you want me to call you doctor during the show or Ashely?
You can call me Ashely.
There's some doctors don't like to be called doctor during the show. They're like, give me a break. I think they're afraid I'm gonna ask if this is infected or not. That's my favorite doctor joke.
Yeah, medical advice. We get hit up for that a lot, but
Does
that's
this
the job.
green thing on my arm look infected? Anyway, so Ashely, you're an emergency medical physician on a mission to improve public health. What? Well,
role.
You studied at Harvard of Public Health's Multinational Institute in Cyprus, where she lived near the United Nations Green Zone, worked in humanitarian affairs at the Unit for the Rehabilitation of Victims of Torture. So, ex-husbands. After graduating from Georgia Washington University of Medicine, she served as a healthcare advisor for a U.S. congressman. Wow. During residency in emergency medicine at the University of California, she became a technical consultant medical screenwriter, improving, she was in California, right? Improving medical accuracy on over 20 shows, TV, film, and Netflix, Hulu, Disney, and her nonprofit Meaningful Media we'll get into as well. So welcome to the show, Dr. Alker. Give us .coms. Where do you want people to find you on the interwebs?
I am on all social media platforms as AALKER, Alker M.D. So that's pretty easy. And then I have a website for me and for my nonprofit. So my website is ashleyalkermd.com. And that first name is spelled ASHELY. And then mymeaningfulmedia.org is the nonprofit.
Ah. Well, I think that's cool. You were on these, you were doing these TV shows to make sure they're accurate and medical accuracy. The TV shows always like to use that. What's that one crutch they use where you could knock people out and then they're going to be fine with no brain damage afterwards, but somehow, the guy can always get away with by knocking someone out or whatever. And you're like, I don't think it works that way. I don't think you lived through that, right?
That and all like the shots in the neck with like an immediate, we have things that can immediately paralyze you, but you're going to stop breathing. All these sedatives that work like within seconds by like shooting them into tissue. It's basically like, there's worse things than that though. Some of it's, poetic license maybe to fit a storyline, but other things perpetuate misinformation for generations. Like you can't sleep after a concussion and doctors search for bullets and you wake up after CPR. Those are the types of things we got to fix.
I'm I'll bet you have some interesting conversations on the set about that, right? Maybe some arguments with the producer where you're like, well, I understand, the poetic license you're trying to make here, but, reality is reality. I don't know.
I've been pretty lucky because the people who, take the time to talk to experts about this stuff and understand the value of the passive health education we can get in TV and film, those people are pretty dedicated to creating a story around the science because they know that it makes better television. So for instance, one of the last shows that I worked on was with J.J. Abrams and his wonderful production crew. And he is somebody who seems to be very dedicated to creating a story around the science and using what we have to build the science fiction portion. And I think that that's why people connect with the work so well. I mean, you see it right now on The Pit, right? Like the medical accuracy on that show is one of the reasons people are so invested is they see it. And even if you don't know the medicine, you can feel that it's like real life.
Yeah.
So I've gotten to work on a lot of cool shows. I did The Act, Handmaid's Tale, Station 19, Bull. I did a Netflix movie that was pretty popular. I'm trying to remember the name of, but I've done a lot of stuff. Most of it was actually not medical television shows, but just medical components of TV shows.
I think there's some real truth to that because when you see something in movies that's a little too outlandish, maybe I'm just old and jaded, but when you see something that's too outlandish, medical wise, or just about anything else in a movie, you kind of go, it kind of breaks the fourth wall because you kind of go, nah, that doesn't fly. No, it's I'm not a doctor either.
But even with the science stuff, right? So one of the reasons I think Jurassic Park did so well, which was written by Michael Crichton, who was a doctor, the reason that I think it did so well was because it was just on the edge of what we thought was possible. And now we're doing some of these things. I mean, they're trying to bring back the woolly mammoth. So hopefully we learned from the movie about dinosaurs, but we're not great at learning from our mistakes, even our theoretical mistakes. So I don't know. We might see some T-Rexes walking around soon.
The one thing man can learn from his history is that man never learns from his history. Thereby we go round and round. So let's get into your book, 99 Ways to Die and How to Avoid Them. And my first question is, who hurt you? No, I'm just kidding. Give us an overview of your book, please.
Yeah. So 99 Ways to Die, and more importantly, How to Avoid Them, is basically a Anthony Bourdain style tour of 99 diseases that you don't have to die from because you can use the science and medicine to fight against these things and make sure that they're not your cause of death. It talks about the policy, the politics, the history, the culture, the sociology, and the science of the diseases. And it does it in a way that, ventures to be entertaining, engaging, captivating, so that it's not just dry nonfiction. And it's written very distinctly as well into these very short chapters so that you can pick it up, put it down, jump to something that interests you. You don't have to read it all at once, but nonetheless, there's life-saving information in every chapter you read.
The life-saving, this maybe you need to give this to the local news stations because they like to lead it, bleed it. So they're always there's hangnails, how you could be dying of one right now, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And to tune in at 11, you're like, well, we better find out what's going on with that. But yeah, it's always good to avoid ways to die. I've kind of found that in living. Why only 99 ways? Was it catchy, 99 beers on the wall or something? Or?
Yeah. So I have more and I wrote more. Eventually your editor is please stop writing. The book is long enough. You have to stop. So 99 is kind of where the sweet spot was. He told me that we were good.
You got a whole series, 99 more ways to die, 99 more ways again to die. How many, is there a number on how many ways to die, or is it pretty much,
You know what? I've never ventured to calculate that. I'm wondering if someone has. I mean, it might be infinite depending on the minutia you get down to, but point being is that we've come a long way, right? Recently life expectancy took a little drop due to some very specific reasons, but in general, our life expectancy has, doubled in the last, 100, 200 years. And so sometimes tripled depending on what numbers you're looking at. So, we have huge advantages over the generations before us due to science and technology, due to refrigeration and vaccines and healthcare. And so I think that we forget how lucky we are to be in the stage in history that we're in. And we also take the science and medicine for granted and maybe ignore it in some ways because we think that, you know, if you never experience something, you kind of think that it's gone. And one thing, you know, that people, the very first chapter of the book is leprosy. And people look at that and they're like, oh, leprosy's gone. I'm like, no, leprosy's in 120 countries, including the United States. Yeah, we just closed our last leper colony in Hawaii. But that being said, we, you know, they still, the armadillos of, you know, Texas and, you know, the southern United States carry leprosy and have caused some resurgence down there. So leprosy is something that is very much among us still. It's just something that we've learned to treat and we know more about now. We know that it's not as contagious as we thought it was. There's a genetic predisposition to being able to contract leprosy and that it is something that is treatable. So because of that, it's not the same disease anymore, right? It's not a life sentence. It's not a death sentence. And additionally, I think that we forget that science did that for us, right? We just take that for granted. Oh, it's gone. It's not gone. It's not the same disease anymore because it's not something that you have to die from. And we do that in a lot of spaces. For instance, strep throat. Everybody, you know, knows what strep throat is, but nobody's afraid of it. And the reason you're not afraid of it is because of antibiotics, because strep throat that is untreated causes rheumatic fever and scarlet fever and neck abscesses. And people, especially children, died of this in very large numbers in the past. But you don't think about that because you don't have to, because medicine has come in and changed that perception of that disease to be no big deal. And, you know, one place where that's really obvious are the vaccine preventable diseases.
Isn't it wild that things are making a surge back? Like measles are coming back now. I think polio and crap because people aren't taking their vaccines.
Yes. So, I mean, I think this is a huge problem within the United States for multiple reasons. The first being that we don't understand the pain that we're not in. So you've never seen any of these diseases before. You don't know what they can do. And they're diseases that killed, you know, millions and millions of specifically children. The Lancet had an article that basically looked at the projected numbers over the past 50 years, and vaccines worldwide have saved 156 million people, and 101 of those were infants, like children. That's 6 people a minute for 50 years.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that we don't understand. And death isn't the worst thing that can happen to you from these diseases. They cause blindness, encephalitis, which is brain inflammation. They cause miscarriage. The diseases that are targeted with vaccines were targeted for very specific reasons. They're very contagious and they're very deadly. And they cause a lot of morbidity as well. So, I mean, I think that, you know, we think, oh, it's weird that they're coming back, but we also have to understand how vaccines work. And we heard a lot about this during the pandemic, but herd immunity is very important, especially in protecting our young that can't yet be vaccinated, our very young, our infants, right? So things like measles and whooping cough that kill babies, if you are not vaccinated, you are the reason that those babies are getting sick. So, you know, that's important. It's about empathy and community and caring about other people.
And why do you think we've lost that in this society? You know, we saw, like during COVID, we saw kind of a start to come together. There was this thing where we were parking outside of hospitals, honking and bringing food and celebrating nurses. And it was a real quick minute. And it was endearing to watch. I was like, what, there's whole people in the parking lot honking for the nurses and supporting them and stuff. And then it went really dark. I think there's a certain person we can blame for that, but who tried to deny it. But why do you think we have this trouble with empathy? I mean, you mentioned that we, since we don't experience it, we don't maybe understand or have as empathy as much. But didn't we used to be a country that had fucking empathy, that cared? I mean, we fought whole world wars to save people that really we didn't have to save. What happened to us, or did something happen to us, I guess, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good question, probably better answered by a historian than me, but I guess my opinion on it is just that, it seems like in our country these days we have empathy until it affects or infringes upon something that could be like a personal right at this point. So like we're all happy cheering for the front care line workers, but when we have to wear a mask and can't travel and have to stay home, then it becomes a problem. And we no longer want to give up any of our rights in order to protect or help other people. And I don't know why that happened. I think it's sad. I don't think that it's a majority of Americans. I think that, I'm hoping it's a minority, but we seem lost. And vaccines are extremely good example of this, of how we just don't seem as a country to be like cohesive and understanding. And I mean, we don't live in a vacuum. Everyone just like looks at America like, oh, autism's on the rise. It must be vaccines. The rest of the world vaccinates, right? You can look other places and see that this is not the case. And, another problem is just medical misinformation is rampant and a source, I think, of a lot of loss of empathy because we're both overexposed and lied to a lot on the internet and, all forms of media. And so I think that in itself causes a trust issue and then, people stop caring. So I think that's what's part of it.
Maybe it's because we're just deluged with so much crap on the internet, like you say, that we're just desensitized. It's desensitized. I mean, there's things that I've seen on the internet that I really wish I had never seen, and it kind of desensitizes you in a way. I've had people bring me, stuff like, oh, look at this dude, falls onto a train tracks, commits suicide, and you're like, dude, I really didn't want to see that, man, and. But after a while, it's like, I don't know, it's a 24/7 horror show really on the internet these days. And I think we become so desensitized to a lot of stuff or dismissive of it. Like, well, I don't know that's really happening. I mean, that's kind of, there's so much fakeness on the internet too. You have people that will do stunts that are fake. And so some people probably look at it and just kind of question the reality of it. But I mean, you can't, whether in a disease like COVID and everything else, it's real life, and maybe we can't discern from real life and what's fake anymore. Maybe that's the problem. I don't know.
I think that's got to be part of it, right? So what we're seeing on the internet, especially as far as medical misinformation, I think it starts to confound even our reality that we see every day. Like we can see things happen and it can be something that we even experience in part by ourselves, and we still question like validity of it, I think. And I mean, that I think mostly started during the pandemic. And a big part of that was just the advent of social media and the 5-second news cycle and how fast medical misinformation spread on the internet. And we've gotten to the point where people have trouble understanding and knowing who to trust. And credentialing is something that people start to question because there are charlatans out there. But additionally, the people that we are listening to are just sometimes people with the most followers, but, have no reason to be followed for that type of advice. So for instance, you have people on the internet telling you to drink raw milk and, put honey in baby formula. And these are people who are like selling themselves as like naturopaths or something along those lines. But all of those things can kill you. Like honey under the age of 1 for a child can cause botulism.
Really?
Raw milk. Yes. Yeah, it's in the book.
I did not know that. That's why we got to read the book.
Yeah.
Folks.
Yeah. There's a reason we don't do that. There's a reason we don't give children under the age of 1 water, diluted formula. It can cause hyponatremia, which is low sodium in the blood, causes brain swelling, seizure, and death.
Crap.
There's reasons for all these things, and they're very specific and medical. And, I think the medical community doesn't do a great job of explaining these things, which is in part why I ventured to write the book, is because we have to find ways to reach people and meet them where they are with the information in a language they understand. like the word hyponatremia is completely useless, right? It's just not part of the English language. It's a medical word. But when you tell somebody, hey, you're running a marathon today, if you drink straight water, you could have a seizure. Make sure you have water with electrolytes. That's understandable and something, they can remember. And when you tell them, hey, did you know this happened to Brooke Shields? She drank too much water and had a seizure because she didn't drink water with electrolytes in it. That's a story they can remember.
Wow.
If you can try and meet people where they are with this information and the stories, I think we can do better at fighting the medical misinformation out there, which is mostly just sensationalized and, it has gotten to the point where it's just so like outlandish that it is desensitizing us, which is a scary thing, especially with the advent of AI and what's coming next for us.
Yeah. I mean, who knows what AI is going to unleash on us? Maybe they're going to make their own plague or something again. I don't know. I don't trust those AI folks.
Yeah.
But 99 Ways to Die, was there any stories in the book that kind of shocked you or stood out to you, or do you have any favorite ways to die?
Yeah. I mean, I would prefer to, avoid all the ways in the book if possible. But there are some interesting stories in there. A lot of them are from, the hospital and my work abroad in medicine. I've worked in Madrid and France and Morocco and Cyprus and Honduras and Tanzania and, across several continents in healthcare and public health. So there's a lot of interesting stories about diseases that we don't see as frequently in the United States. And there's also things that, for whatever reason, America is very interested in serial killers. And I had the unfortunate experience of meeting one. So that story is in the book and it's pretty interesting, especially because serial killers aren't really who we think they are. I think that television sells them as these kind of, brilliant, evil people, but really they're just kind of narcissists and their IQs aren't higher than anyone else. They're not geniuses. They're just sociopaths. So, that chapter is interesting. And then there's stuff that you find everywhere that might be really rare, but is super avoidable. So brain-eating amoeba, you don't have to get that. They live in hot water, hot springs. And so every once in a while we have issues with them in neti pots. As long as you're keeping your head above water in hot springs and using a neti pot with sterilized water, you're not going to get this disease. So, and it is 100% fatal, but very rare. So there's a whole variety of things in there from, lightning to different modes of transportation, such as, motorcycles and ATVs. And then, of course, bacterial diseases, vaccine preventable diseases. And there's an entire chapter on sex as well, which is an important way to avoid dying.
Wait, I can die from sex?
Oh, yes.
What?
Yeah, I mean, there's a chapter on butt stuff, STDs. there's all these things we just need to avoid and are pretty easily avoidable. I mean, most people don't know you can die from STDs.
Oh, really?
I mean, things like,
right? Yeah,
I mean, that one's easy, but like gonorrhea and chlamydia can even kill you.
Yeah, I heard recently somebody had penicillin resistant gonorrhea.
Gonorrhea is on the watch list for the CDC for the amount of resistance it's developed, unfortunately. So we only have one class of antibiotics that treats it at this point. So the next generation could be in a bit more trouble. So it's an important disease to treat and is very treatable right now. So, and getting tested is easy. It's just peeing in a cup. I think most people think there's some like swab or something that happens, but it's just, you just pee in a cup and that's it. Yeah. So
we do that on Fridays around here at the office.
Yeah, it's easy peasy, right?
I mean, we just pee in the cup. We don't really do anything with it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
fair enough.
It's I don't know. I'm not going to expand on that joke. It's just gross. So anyway, yeah. I mean, I'm going to have to find out. I don't want to die during sex. That's one of my favorite things, eh?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that, like I said, all these things are very avoidable. So it's not something you have to die from.
Yeah. So if you buy the books, folks, you can at least cut out 99 Ways to Die, and then you have to wait for the second book to come out for 99 more, or however this works with Ashely.
I'll keep going.
You can make it a whole series, man. I'm sure there's a what's that movie? They've had about 6 or 7 of them, and they're just all sorts of ways that it's like fatal destiny or something.
Final Destination. Is that what? Yeah, that I think scarred my generation. Anytime you're behind a truck with like logs on it, everyone always takes a picture and is like, am I going to die?
I'm going to die.
That is not in the book. Driving is in the book, but there's no logs in the book as far as I can. So that part's
that might be book 2 or 3, maybe.
Yeah, we'll get into more television. They didn't consult me for that film. I was too young and not a doctor.
They did do some promotion around, I think, the latest movie where they drove trucks around with Final Destination on the side of it with logs.
Oh, that's just mean. Now you're targeting us. But again, good marketing. I mean,
freeways and drove around.
I do feel like that's one of the things that we're missing in public health these days is better marketing, so people can kind of, that's why I did the television stuff and wrote the book. It's just like, I feel like we need to find ways to be more engaging, because misinformation on the internet and, this type of stuff is just so engaging. That's why MIT actually did a study on this. And specifically during the pandemic, misinformation moved 6 times faster than the truth. And it's just because it was more interesting to people, because it was made up and it was often novel, and it just got more clicks, and that perpetuates itself in the algorithm. So, you got to be better.
Isn't it interesting how some of the dumbest people think that uniqueness that you described there makes it more truthful? Like the weirdness of the lie means it's kind of like the speciality of the lie makes it more real.
Yeah, like you haven't heard it before. So I haven't thought about this, so maybe it's something that could be. I'm not sure why that is, but it's definitely something that's true, because they've seen it in studies that basically if it's something you haven't heard before, it is more likely to captivate you and then kind of entrap you. So,
and then sometimes they'll take that spin. Like I said, I've got people that will send me their algorithm and their posts, and they'll be like some of the most quackiest shit. Like, you can solve cancer with honey. Just smear honey on your cancer and you'll be fine. And there'll be some quirkiness, like, make sure you only use a teaspoon. And like, well, they wouldn't be that exact with the description if it wasn't true. And you're like, and I think probably the main factor in this we can rack up to the Dunning-Kruger disease. Dunning-Kruger.
That's in the book.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, it is. So it's an important fallacy.
Can get you killed.
Yeah.
It's an old.
It's like knowing where the gas pedal is and not the brake, right? So you see that the Dunning-Kruger effect when people learn, right? So they learn and they start to get just enough information that they're comfortable. And once people are comfortable with the information, most people will stop learning. Most people don't become experts and spend tens of thousands of hours on something, right? Yeah. Because it becomes redundant and boring, and you start to think, oh, I already know this. But the problem is that point where people are comfortable and stop, that's the point where you start to test the reality and start to understand fallacies in the argument. You start to understand the other sides of the argument. You start to test it. And that's science, right? Is when we start testing our truths. And so the Dunning-Kruger effect is something that's greatly exploited by the internet, because they get just enough information and get you just to the point where you feel comfortable. And that's when they sell you something.
Oh, yeah. That's when we see the life coaches at 20 years old. I'm a life coach now. You're fucking 20. Like,
give it a minute.
if you had no idea how much you don't know, I'm 58, and the amount of stuff that I don't know, and I know a lot, is infinite. It's, what is it? We only use like 5% of our brains, and I think that's the smartest people. I don't know. I've been on Twitter lately. I'm not sure we're breaking 1%, really. And it kind of, we talked before the show too about there was a book called The Death of Expertise. And it seems like with the advent of bloggers and everybody who claims that they're, the smartest person in the world on any given subject, but no one went to school for it, Like I say, we see this a lot with the coaching community. There's lots of coaches I found that profess to be hugely successful that I found are living out of their cars and dead broke, and they always want on the show too. So
yeah, I don't know why that is. I think that, and we see that a lot even in the medical community. So a lot of these doctors who end up being like very successful in some realms, if you go look at their credentials, they haven't finished medical school. They didn't finish residency. I'm like, you didn't even become a practicing board certified physician. And that's fine if you're going to go write television like Michael Creighton. But if you're going to be in politics, or you're going going to be selling medicine, like a very specific doctor who was recently in the news, maybe finish. Because medical school is definitely the beginning of that Dunning-Kruger effect. Medical school is where you become comfortable with the information, and residency is where you test it. So if you're not going to finish, don't be a doctor. That's that's not what our profession is about. You need to practice if you're going to be out there selling information to people. But more importantly, if you're going to be out there selling products to people, I don't know. I just don't think that that's good for the patients or the community. And a lot of times those people at the end of the day end up being charlatans. So, I have trouble trusting them.
What? How would you not trust the charlatans? Yeah. And it seems like, we've been tempted by it too. We've been on YouTube for 18 years. We've been podcasting for 16. The clickbait era, now it's the short eras of the short videos. And, you can't get any freaking good information in there. It's the same as like watching the news, 99 ways, or, they're like, how to die from hangnails tune in at 11 to find out how your family can not die from hangnails today. Do you have a hangnail? You could die from it. Tune in at 11.
Yeah, they're hooking you.
Yeah, and then they spend like 3 minutes covering that you could die. You could die from anything, I think, at this point. You could die from watching the news, I think. Anyway, I'm just making up stuff, folks. Don't write me. You're speaking conspiracy theories, Chris.
But I think you're right. I think that, unfortunately, that hook and that marketing and the sensationalization of news and media has become so prevalent that now, my book, I'm not trying to scare you in my book. There's nothing to be afraid about in this book. This is all preventable stuff. There's nothing really sensationalized in here. It's just the information. And in some ways, I try to make it entertaining because it's nonfiction and that can be dry. But, the reason that I wrote a book and didn't do it as an influencer on, Twitter or whatever is because I thought that it would be more meaningful to have something written down in a form that can't be changed, where you can look at the information and you can trust it in a way because it's not something that can be changed like the internet, right? I can't delete it. I can't go back and edit it. I can't, it's not something that's there and then gone tomorrow. I wanted to create something that was kind of a reference of sorts that you could trust. And to kind of build that trust in a way that was more concrete in a world that is 5 seconds here and then gone, especially with information that's life-saving. I don't think that's the way we should be getting it. So I tried to do it in a way that was slower and more permanent so that it starts to help build more trust than, the way that we're doing it elsewhere, which is, kind of a flurry of misinformation on the internet. I don't know how anyone gets through it these days.
Yeah. And I mean, it's all about hype and about noise and attention. And it seems like, we've often said it, my favorite quote from Ron Brown is it Ron Brown, the comedian? Something Brown. Ron White. I always get that wrong. Ron White, the one thing about you can't fix stupid. Stupid is forever. I
hope that's not true.
You can fix people with plastic surgery. He tells a story about how my wife can get implants. She can get lip filler. She can get anything she wants. But the one thing you can't fix is stupid. Stupid is forever. And it seems to be true because I keep trying to make people smarter. And there's some people that are just relentlessly like, no, I really want to be my stupid. And it's really comfortable here. There are books. You agreed? How come you never did, one thing you mentioned something earlier back in our conversation that kind of gave me some ideas. You said something to the effect of maybe what we need is, we need a better promotion or hype of real medical information. So maybe we need to have some fun. Maybe we need to hire like the ShamWow guy. Maybe we need to hire, who's that one guy? Billy, what's his face? Who used to do Ron Pompey and I can't remember the
QVC sellers and
Billy
the people who are like,
we need Billy Mays to take this over with his Coke habit and OxyClean, and we just need to take like you should redo a book and call it 99 Fun Ways to Die. How come no one's ever done that?
I don't know. I can't. People are so afraid of death. I don't know. I'd have to like really think about that. I mean, I don't know if there are any fun ways. There's definitely ways people prefer to die, but most people want to die like of age in their sleep, which, you know, I don't know if that's fun, but painless. Maybe
that's
painless
a great way to go.
But I think you're right. I think like, you know, we need the sham wow type of like entertainment in our medicine. And I think some people are catching on to that. So like one thing that, you know, a lot of people are watching right now is The Pit. And, you know, that is the dramatization of my job every day. But they do a great job of pulling physicians in and having them work on the set and on the show. There's Joe Sachs is an emergency medicine physician. He's a writer producer on the show. And they create, you know, basically a reality that based off the medicine. They start at the medicine and they work outwards with the story. And people get it. People are responding to it because they can see that it feels real, even if they themselves don't know the science and the medicine. And I think that's the important, you know, thing that we're missing here is that we can be more entertaining and meet people where they are with the information. But it is hard to get above the noise. But I think it's something that we have to learn how to do as humans, especially as we start letting artificial intelligence take over, you know, the internet, because it is addictive. We've seen that, right? We've seen the rabbit holes. We understand how people can kind of get stuck for hours watching TikTok and YouTube and kind of consuming things that, you know, make us, you know, for lack of a better way to say this, stupider, right? It's trying to drown you in misinformation in some situations. So, you know, things like The Pit that kind of rise above and do it right and still are entertaining people. I think that's where it's at. And, you know, maybe we all need a little sham wow. Who knows?
I think we need Billy Mays. Like Billy Mays should have sold the COVID vaccine. I don't remember if he was alive back then. But you know, we should have had him selling the COVID vaccine. Get your shot now. If you get one today, you'll get a follow-up later. I know.
I think they did use, because they used Elvis for polio. He got
did they really?
On TV. Yeah, he got, I think it was the...
See, we're doing it all wrong.
Yeah, I mean, and
Elvis is still alive, too, according to, you know, the internet and magazines.
Yeah, so probably because he's got the polio vaccine.
Well, the banana sandwich that they said he choked on and died from, that's actually a form of penicillin. Most people don't know that. See, what am I doing? I'm just making a bullshit on this show.
No misinformation, Chris. Come on.
But no, I think we need a ShamWow Billy Mays type guy. Can we get a guy who has a cokehead problem on the thing to do this? And
I'm hoping that the book does it without the there is cocaine in the book, though. I will say.
You can die from cocaine.
Yeah, it's in the book.
You guys know we could die from that shit that goes on Fridays. No, I'm just kidding. We don't do that.
Yeah, there's lots of, there's a drug chapter in the book and it talks about all of them. Just just to like.
So drugs
give
are
people
bad.
The information. I mean, I rather you not take them. They cause lots of problems. You know, both financial and health.
And embarrassing sometimes. Yeah.
And social. Yeah. So
dancing on the tables.
I'm hoping that the book does a little ShamWowing. Like I'm hoping that the book is, you know, entertaining in a way that like grips people because, you know, the subjects that I picked in there, I picked for those reasons. Not only are they avoidable, but most people find, you know, MDMA interesting. Like, you know, how can you die from this? You know, let's avoid it.
Yeah. I think if you hire Billy Mays, a guy, well, the ShamWow guy's still alive. Evidently, he's going to run for office because nothing qualifies you for government in this era than, I don't know, being some hawker of crap on the internet.
Something. Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, I'm hoping we recover.
Yes. You know, I could see him with ShamWow towels wiping down his congressional seat, whatever. I don't know. But yeah, let's talk. I was trying to set this up for a lead into your nonprofit if you want to give us a plug on that.
Oh, yeah. So Meaningful Media, I started several years ago, and it's a nonprofit that tries to avoid medical misinformation by connecting people who are credentialed public health professionals with creators, whether that be people who are writers, people in the news, people in television, producers, or just people on social media that are trying to get medically accurate and scientifically accurate public health messages across. And it was created kind of in the light of the pandemic, understanding how far behind we are and how far ahead the medical information pushers are. And, my hope is that if we can start making these messages more interesting and attainable, that the accuracy will win out, because that's what's going to save people.
Accuracy and truth. But you're right. Like with abortion, they say one of the problems is when I was young in the 70s and the 60s, you would see women flooding ER rooms with, they'd either done some sort of back alley, seedy dude or whatever in some back alley abortion, or they had they tried to self-induce one, bleach and all sorts of horrible things that would do to their bodies that would have extensive, damage research. And so we were seeing these women fill the ERs in the 60s and 70s, or 60s, I guess. When was it passed? 68, 72 for Roe versus Wade. But now we don't see that anymore. And so now abortion and those sort of things, now that we don't see measles. When I grew up, there was still a lot of measles running around. I mean, everybody in my school, not almost everybody. I think I avoided measles, but I did get chickenpox.
It might have been chickenpox. Yeah, chickenpox was everywhere. Yeah, it wasn't measles.
But there were still a lot of people when I was young that had measles. I mean, there's a lot of people that got them. I was like, holy shit, this, and I was in this early 70s, and we wait in these big lines and go get our vaccine shots, and everybody would do it. It was like you say, herd immunity. We were all kind of understood that, the way to kill this off. But, this whole thing of just being desensitized and not knowing what to believe. I think that's part of it too. There's so much bullshit being fed to us. People don't know what to believe.
Well, and we scare people too, right? We tell people the misinformation about autism, it continues to this day. Like at first it was mercury. Mercury has been removed from vaccines. So now it's aluminum. You can't just change the argument to fit whatever you want. There has been no link between autism and vaccines. Autism is a very complicated multifactorial genetic disorder. And, people basically, and sometimes one person messaged me because the anti-vaxxers have found my book and have come for me, and you're being paid by biopharma. I'm like, I haven't made any money from this book, first of all, let alone biopharma. No one's paid me anything. I am trying to help people understand the science and the medicine and the diseases that they haven't seen before, and why it's important for them to be vaccinated against these things. These people have kind of found my platforms and are starting to argue with me on there. I don't argue with people online because you don't want to change. You're just trying to create more misinformation. You're not actually arguing because you are concerned about the subject or understand the subject. So I don't fight with people on the internet. But the point being is that there's just so much we can do better to get people the right information. When it comes to things like abortion, most people, especially when, the overturning of the Roe v. Wade stuff in certain states, people don't understand ectopic pregnancies. People don't understand how difficult and dangerous and life-threatening pregnancy is, which is a chapter in my book. There are hundreds of ways to die specifically just from being pregnant, from preeclampsia to postpartum cardiomyopathy, increased pulmonary embolisms. There are types of cancer that you can only get by being pregnant. So,
really?
Yeah, we just don't tell women any of this.
I didn't even know that.
Because our society doesn't care about them. They're like, you go be pregnant. We're not going to pay you. There's no child care. We don't understand why there's a wage gap. I'm like, only half of us have to create the entirety of our society. You don't understand why there's a wage gap? Yeah. So there's a chapter in there because women should understand what they're doing and the dangers of being pregnant. And I actually became pregnant while writing this book.
And really?
That chapter while I was pregnant and I made the decision for my family.
Scary.
I knew it all before, but I made that decision informed. I knew the dangers that I knew what an amniotic fluid embolism was. I wanted to be pregnant. I wanted to risk my life. I wanted to have a child with my husband. Those are decisions that every woman should be able to make, because pregnancy is far more dangerous than having a medically safe abortion, especially early, which is just a pill. You know, these are things that our society, we have to do better at educating people on this stuff, because it's hard for them to make informed, good decisions when they don't have the right information. And part of that is our fault as a public health institution. Our country is not doing a good job at getting the people information in ways that they can understand it. And that's what the book is. And that's what I do for television. And that's what my nonprofit does. And I'm trying my best to get people that information so they can make the right decisions for themselves.
Like I say, I mean, when I was young, I knew people that had measles. I don't know if I know anybody who had polio, but it was the 70s. So I think that polio was still winding down, but we were still all vaccinating. We all kind of understood, even though, I didn't really know anybody or anyone close to me. I don't know. I don't remember the 70s much. I'm old. But, you just kind of knew. You're just like, hey, help people out. It's interesting that people attack you. You're a licensed provider. You went to college and school, and of course you're always learning and researching as a medical professional. And it's funny, they don't ask you questions at first, like, oh, what is your background of study? What is your licensing? They just attack you. And it's amazing to me when I see people send me stuff and I'm like, does that person have a degree in that? Did they go to college? Are they just, they're a podcaster who worked at McDonald's last week and now they're a podcaster? Oh, great. Yeah. It's really, I question everything. I don't do it just as a matter of fact, well, we should question everything, like some sort of conspiracy nutball. But, I try to understand things, maybe is the better way to put it.
Well, and I think that's an important place to start, right? Look at where you're getting your information from. What is their credentialing? What does this person have to gain by selling you false information? Are they selling a supplement that they promise is going to cure your chronic Lyme? What is it that they're doing that, like, for me, I don't get anything by you getting a vaccine other than like living in a safer society, I suppose. But like, I don't make any money. As an emergency medicine doctor, you can choose to go to the cath lab to unclog your heart attack, or you could not. And as a human being, I would be sad if you chose not to, get saved by the science and the medicine. But I don't get paid more. I don't gain anything by these decisions. I give you the information and you make the decisions. I think making sure you're trying to find people that aren't selling you something that benefits them is very important. But you also have to recognize in this day and age, some people are just asking for your time and attention, especially on like social media or in government. Just paying attention to the misinformation is sometimes what they're selling because they're trying to popularize themselves. So that's pretty important to recognize. And so trying to get your information from somebody that you trust, like your primary care doctor or somebody you have a relationship with when it comes to that, like medical information, I think is really important to kind of ground yourself and anchor yourself in a reality that you can, that has validity and can be verified, and somebody that not somebody from the internet, please.
You spoke on intent. That's one of the things I have a conversation with people send me batshittery, and I go, look at the intent. Can you not see that in the first 5 seconds of the video, the guy's hawking, I don't know, his own private line of vitamins, or they have these things now where you can white label vitamins or protein or just about anything for the most part, and so you pay some company that ships it and packages it, puts your label name on it, and suddenly you're a professional because you're selling, I don't know, you're hawking medical crap, and so you'll see these people, and I'm like, the people send me the doomsday videos of like the world's ending tomorrow, that kind of crap. But by the way, you can buy our Survivor line of foods you can store in your basement that will go bad in a year. I've seen that movie. My dad used to buy like all this the end of the world shit, and it would always go bad. and the rats to be in the wheat and all that shit. And we're just like, you want us to eat that when the world goes bad? I'm gonna work hard to make sure it doesn't. But yeah, it's just amazing what people can't see the intent of the message. What is someone selling, and why are they selling it to you, and what's their motivation in doing that to you? If a doctor tells me, don't stick your hand in the blender, Chris, I don't question his credentials and go like, what? How are you making money at this? What is your angle?
But also, like, I'm happy to provide my credentials. And that's important too, right? Like, I finished undergrad, I went to graduate school, I then went to medical school, and then I went to residency, and I have to take boards every 5 years. So I am somebody who at least is being vetted and like put in the time to have the scientific information and to understand the medicine and to be able to translate it to you, So I think it's important to recognize like the difference between me and somebody who dropped out of medical school. Like, it's not the same thing. You should know who's giving you the information, and you have a right to know their background, because I think that's a big part of it too. People sell themselves as, I'm a doctor, and it's like, okay, are you a veterinarian? Are you an NP that did a research, nurse practitioner that did a research degree? Are you a naturopath? Are you a chiropractor? Are you a physician that just finished medical school and didn't finish residency? So I think that it's hard because we aren't really upfront with these types of things with the community. And I think that's one of the places to start, is to be honest with people where the information's coming from, so they can start filtering through some of it, because it's only going to get harder as technology continues to expand and we can continue to get our information from social media.
Yeah. We gotta start, I don't know, reading books and educating ourselves more. It's almost like what they're doing is they're just trying to come up with ways to waste as much time on the internet and calling out real data to just avoid reading books. Because this is usually the conversation I have with people that send me stuff.
Yeah.
I go, hey, are you reading any books lately on how to understand what you're sharing? Because then you wouldn't share what you're sharing if you read a book.
Yeah. And I think books are like, they are grounding, right? Like, that's why I did this not on the internet and not on television. Like, it is something that is like a physical thing that, cannot be easily changed. And I think getting your information and knowledge from something that's been vetted in that way, I think it's a great place to start. And, and unfortunately, we don't read a lot of books in America. And so finding ways to reach people with this information is so important. And we have to try and get people back into reading, especially the younger generations, which is why you'll notice the book chapters are very, very short. I wrote it with the TikTok generation in mind, like, hey, maybe you might be interested in this as well. Like, the older generations definitely can read longer chapters, etc. But I tried to pare it down to, just a couple pages per topic, so that people that are younger that might not have the same attention spans because of the way that we're bringing people up in media these days, they can engage with it as well. And so that's the hope. It's just really about meeting people where they are with life-saving information and trying to maybe make them laugh and maybe make them remember some things through stories.
Oh, make them remember and learn people. It's really important. And also just, what is somebody angle? I grew up in the 70s when they were starting the subconscious advertising, where they would have sex written in smoke of the cigarette ad or whatever it was, or, the giant nose on the camel that clearly looks like a body part. They were starting to do all that. And then the advertising community said, hey, whoa, this is, we're messing with people a little bit too much here. So they kind of agreed to cut all that out. But I saw the effects of that, and it really had an impact on me when I was, I would go look up the ads and you'd see the subliminal messages that were in them. And I was like, holy crap, man, you got to really be smart in this world because you can get played. And, now, when it's always amazing to me, you see people hawking misinformation on the internet, and then they're like, and by the way, I also sell the thing that can fix the bullshit that I just made up. And you're like, okay, well.
Yeah. And they target certain populations. So one thing I talk about in the book is chronic Lyme. And chronic Lyme is first of all, doesn't exist. There is an post-inflammatory disease that the Infectious Disease Society has showed that after Lyme, some people have an inflammatory response, and those people will have maybe effects usually for about a year, and then it goes away by itself. But, a lot of these people are people that are in the Hamptons and Connecticut, and they have a lot of money and they're movie stars. So what medical charlatans have created chronic Lyme. They do a blood test that they know is like a blood test that basically shows that you've had Lyme before. So anyone who's ever had Lyme before is going to have a positive immunoglobulin. One of them is going to be positive for Lyme because it just shows that you've had the disease. Just like, for instance, if you've had a vaccine or any other disease, any type of long-standing immunity is going to produce this blood test result that's going to be positive. But they use that blood test result to be like, oh, look, you've had Lyme. You probably have chronic Lyme. Let me treat you with whatever infusions or whatever very expensive healthcare that is generally not covered by insurance. And I'll fix this for you because nobody else can fix it. And they're taking advantage of people who have real healthcare problems and are looking for an answer. And they're basically selling them snake oil. And a lot of these people would get better on their own if it is a post-inflammatory response to Lyme, and they don't have to do the things that are, being sold to them. But, they basically picked this population because this population generally tends to have a lot of money. Like you'll see, movie stars. I think Justin Bieber was diagnosed with it, and somebody else recently that's very famous was in the news about it. And, they have real symptoms and a real disease going on, but they're, being sold this like chronic Lyme myth that they have this chronic infection, which is not the case. Rather, it's, post-inflammatory and something that should just get better on its own, which should cost you nothing,
Yeah. I think sadly, sometimes people hear about bad things, maybe some medical doctors do, and that ends up tainting their whole opinion of the whole
of course
medicine or doctor community. I remember there was the one guy, I think he was up in Portland. He had this concept that he called the Widowmaker, where he would I don't know, whatever they do, he'd basically figure out that you had a bad artery line into your heart or whatever it's called. Clearly I'm not a doctor, but if you do want if you don't want advice on that, you can buy my elixir. No, I'm just kidding. Come to think of it,
sounds like it was telling people they had like an LAD lesion. So he said you're going to have a heart attack, and then what happened?
And then he would go in and put in stents, I think, or do something. He would call the bad line the Widowmaker. He goes, "Oh, you got a Widowmaker," and that was kind of his selling point, because you tell people they got a Widowmaker, especially if they're a husband, they're like, "Yeah, I should get this."
And there was no blockage.
Well, I think sometimes there was, but he kind of started using it for like he was like the biggest income doctor at that hospital and region.
Oh gosh.
So he was the biggest moneymaker. I'm sorry, I should say the biggest moneymaker. Yeah. And so the hospital's sitting there going, we're bathing in money. He was bathing in money, and they were finding that there were people he said had a Widowmaker that, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Yeah.
Oh, and that's some of the disturbing.
Procedures were, so they've, but you hear stories like that, and people go, "Oh, the whole medical communities, every doctor is in the bag for." Well,
and the problem with that is there is a lesion that is in your arteries. So your coronary arteries bring blood to the heart, and a blockage of one of those arteries is a heart attack. And there is a blockage of one of those arteries that's called a Widowmaker. That's a real thing. Oh. So he was using something that was real and maybe being...
He turned it into marketing.
Yeah. I mean, so there's bad people everywhere, which is why you have to find your people and find a primary care doctor that you trust, find, a medical community of people that you can kind of ground yourself in, that are credentialed, that you can trust. So don't get medical information online. And I mean... It's good that doctors are vetted and that, we have licensing, because we can't go online and lie to you if we have a license without having, getting our license revoked. So remember that there are repercussions for people who are licensed, which is important, right? Because if you're a ballerina who runs a farm and you're selling raw milk and you give everyone listeria, you're not going to lose your license. Like, you might get in trouble for poisoning everyone, but like, there's nothing to lose there, So that's the problem, is like, you got to make sure that you're getting your information from somebody who has to be responsible for the information they're giving you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And and measure their intent. If a doctor just tells me, like I say, don't stick your hand in a blender, I'm not going to sit there and be like, you're
who's paying
big
you?
Pharma. Big
like,
Pharma. I'm going to go do it right now just to show you.
I'm like, maybe just don't.
I'm going to make
don't
a
do
YouTube
that.
video of it. I'm sure it'll go viral too, because it's going to be the dumbest thing I've ever done. Anyway, thank you very much for coming to the show. We really appreciate it, Ashely. Give us your final pitch out to people who order up your book, and .coms, where they can find you on the interwebs.
Yeah, so the book is available wherever books are sold. That includes all independent bookstores that have purchased the book. You can get it online, Barnes and Nobles, etc. It could be purchased anywhere. I'm online at Alker M.D. That's my handle on all platforms. And, I hope you take time to read the book. I hope it entertains you and teaches you something that could save your life.
Well, thank you very much, Ashely. Hey, was the 99th way to die piss off Ashely?
That was the 100th. They took it out.
That was the 100th. They took it out. I would give you a shirt that said, like, hey, I read 99 ways to die. Don't mess with me.
People know not to mess with me.
Don't mess with your doctors. We need doctors too. They're real important. At least licensed doctors, for that matter. Make sure they are licensed. I can't tell you how many quacks that I've seen on like TikTok for the longest time and have been like, I don't know about this guy. And then somebody will do one of those out them videos and find out they're not licensed and stuff. And you're like, really?
Yeah. They've been like, their license has been taken away. They don't have a job. Like, look these people up, please. Protect yourself.
What is funny is, and I can probably say we've had at least one or two people on the show that have done this, but this is how I kind of found out that there's doctors, including psychologists and doctors, that can lose their license, but they can go be international or national coaches, because coaching falls outside of the purview of medical licensing. And so, well, a lot of times a doctor, they're locally licensed, right? You have to be licensed per state or something like that, I think. But as a coach, you can just, you're not bound by that licensing. And I've seen some things like that where I'm just like, wait, you had your license removed in Mississippi.
Don't let them coach you.
Now you're a coach?
No.
If doctors have their license taken away, like, it tells you some things right there.
Yeah. Don't listen to them.
Yeah.
That's not the person you want coaching you.
Be careful, folks, and avoid podcasts that promote this sort of shit. I would just be disgusted if I ever had somebody on the show that just sold total bullshit. And we try and push back. We try and correct on the show if somebody says something that's completely batshittery. We go, wait. No, here on Google, and here's some data, and we try and set the record straight if somebody tries to shovel something. They find out really quick they can't shovel it on the show. So anyway, thank you, Ashely, for coming. Order up the book, folks, wherever fine books are sold. 99 Ways to Die and How to Avoid Them. The 100th way has pissed me off. January 13th, 2026 just came out, so you can order it wherever fine books are sold. It's getting all the great reviews there. It's got 4.5 stars on the Amazon there, and 4.2 on Goodreads. So it's getting really popular. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe, and read books on how to avoid dying. And remember, stupidity also kills. So avoid that as well. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the most amazing, intelligent podcast ever made to improve your brain and your life. Warning, consuming too much of the Chris Voss Show podcast can lead to people thinking you're smarter, younger, and irresistible sexy. Consume in regularly moderated amounts. Consult a doctor for any resulting brain bleed.
All right, Ashely, great show. Good stuff there.